All right, so this is our fifth session. So welcome to our session this evening. So let me present to you our topic for tonight. So this is about object-oriented programming. Okay, our objectives for this evening is to number one, explain object-oriented programming. Number two, explain the concepts of classes, objects, properties, methods, and events. And number three, identify values and references, plus encapsulations. So thinking in an object-oriented programming way, an object-oriented programming is a way programming which enables programmers to think like they are working with real-life entities. So when you speak about entities, that is any variable, anything that constitute um, living or non-living thing. So it is a thing with distinct and independent existence or objects. So in real life, people have knowledge and can do various work. In object-oriented programming, objects have field to store knowledge, data, or state, and can do various works and methods. So that is an example of an object. So we have here important points to know about object-oriented programming. So object-oriented programming first treats data as a critical element. This means that the data is being processed into several processes so that it will become an output. So this will come up with an IPO diagram. So that is a very good example uh, of a critical element for treating data. Number two is to emphasize data rather than procedure. So data is more king than procedure. Data is everything. So data can be interpreted and it can be evaluated and it can be stored, retrieved, and used for a purpose. So rather than a procedure are just the steps, but data will make a difference in object-oriented programming. Number three is the decomposition of the problem into simpler modules. The decomposition of a simpler module for programs evaluates into a systematic type approach, wherein you divide the work and then compile each assignment. And then afterwards, that's the time that you're going to combine them and compile it totally. So it makes the work simpler. And then the programmers were able to give tasks to everyone. So it's a win-win situation. Number four, it doesn't allow data to freely flow in the entire system. For example, localized control flow. A localized control flow is an example is a flow chart wherein you can determine the key points of an object or the processes that is being done. If there are conditional statements, you would go on to have choices. So if you answer yes or if you answer no, then there is an equivalent approach to this kind of situation. So you were able to go to a certain category wherein it has a certain points or conditions. If you meet that condition, then that's the time that the program will take effect. If not, it will end. Okay. Number five is data is protected from external functions. Data is very much important, therefore it can be protected in other situations so that the data will not be manipulated in such a way that you can come up with a biases. So a bias is an unfair condition wherein you give a certain weight to a certain thing. So um, it's rather applicable to all circumstances. However, it's unfair. So to treat this about object-oriented programming, data can be protected from external functions. Now, let's discuss the advantages of object-oriented programming. Number one, it models the real world very well. So, the data that is being conjugated on your object-oriented programming can be seen in real life. This can be modeled to them so that it is The characteristics of an object reflects that of a real object or a real thing. So you can see that the differences are very meager and it is represented in any aspect. Then, during that time, if ever you will consider that as a model, you can do decisions that very, very well said, fairly, squarely, and adjacent to a situation of a certain condition. Number two, with object-oriented programming, programs are easy to understand and maintain. So this can be better said than done, that the programs can be understood really well and maintained entirety. Entirety means totally. So it is easy for you to understand the program that is being given, and it is easy for you to manipulate all the variables that you can see on OOP. Number three, OP offers code reusability. Already created classes can be reduced without having to rewrite them. So for your reusability, it means you recycle the code, meaning to say it can be done, but all you have to do is to take the variable and substitute. So the processes are there, but then the applications are different. You may use that in a certain conditions which has a similar approach or a similar pattern, so that you'll be able to go on coding without any hassle. For number four, object-oriented programming facilitates the quick development of programs where parallel development of classes is possible. This means that the facilitation or the facility of the quick development of programs is paralleled with the development for classes. The classes are being done with characteristics, and therefore you can use that characteristics to your own advantage by programming it in a certain way. If it is possible for you can do that on a quick development approach like agile programming and extreme programming, wherein you can bypass certain steps and be able to come up with a good quality program. With object-oriented programming, programs are easier to test, manage, and debug. So as you can see, a 20-line code can be read by your computer's compiler or IDE, and then be able to determine if there are certain errors which can be displayed after the display of the value which you can run the program. So objects are determined or can see as a very detailed approach, like the variables are being manipulated well within the test subjects and conditions. If you will do that, it means to say that you have an easy time to test, you have an easy time to manage and debug. If there are advantages, there are also disadvantages of object-oriented programming. Number one, with object-oriented programming, classes sometimes tend to be overgeneralized. This means to say that there are certain situations wherein you cannot come up with a certain classes to be done. So these classes as attributes. Mainly, the attributes can be determined by his parent coherence and the child offspring. So whatever, for example, if whatever things that you can see on your parents, you can sometimes tend to observe that you have certain characteristics similar to them. So these are inherited hierarchy. Now, that will be our basis for inheritance programming. But tonight, with OP, the classes sometimes to be overgeneralized just because of a certain conditions that is being met within the program structure. However, if you tend to overgeneralize it, tendency will be you have a hard time running the program. So don't do it. Number two, the relations among classes become superficial at times. So superficial in terms of conditional statements being run and not becomes within the program that is logical. So to do away with this, please evaluate the certain code if ever you can come across with this. So how are you going to do that? Through ocular inspection. You can easily see the code that is being run or being encoded. So if you can see directly that there are errors, a precondition, please evaluate it and change it so that you can come up with a logical answer. Number three, the object-oriented design is tricky and requires appropriate knowledge. True. That is why you must study well the objects in OP programming. Also, one needs to do proper planning and design for object-oriented programming. But don't you worry, because there are certain approach that you can use, like designing you can follow a certain method like waterfall method, agile programming, and etc. So those are the things that will guide you. And of course, you will study them on your SAD or systems. Um, what is SAD gani? Systems analysis and design. So may subject ka mo guys nga systems analysis and design. So more of that will be discussed on that subject. Number four, to program with object-oriented programming, the programmer needs proper skills such as that of design, programming, and thinking in terms of objects and classes. So this is very technical. However, in practice ko no, you will be a skilled programmer in no time. So that is why please study that kind of approach, wherein if you're a programmer, you need proper skills such as programming skills. If you're a designer, you must have an instinct of a designer, and you must think in terms of objects and classes. So this is an example of classes. As you can see there on our example, this one is a parent class, and this one are your child classes. Okay, so as you can see on the above, these are objects. Below, these are its attributes. So whenever an object, like for example, a truck, would refer us to be a vehicle, sometimes the characteristic of a truck can be found on the characteristics of a vehicle. What is this? So like for example, if you are a truck, you must have steering wheel. And if you are a vehicle, you must have a steering wheel at the same time. If you are a truck, then you must have wheels. If you are a vehicle, you must have four wheels. So sometimes the object varies, but the attributes are the same. The attributes are similar, or sometimes it's not similar, but it is added into some other characteristics. So that is an example of classes. For your activity number 13, what you're going to do is to code it. Please refer to your module for your activity number 13. For an object is any classification within the variable that is being referred to. For an object, you can see here that there are two kinds of objects: a base class, such as a dog, and an object such as Rain. Rain is the name of the dog. So the base class is dog, wherein it has properties like color, eye color, height, length, weight, and it is transposed into an object, which is Rain, because the name of the dog is Rain, and its property values become color. The color of Rain is gray, white, and black. For its eye color, it is blue and brown. For its height, it's 18 inches. Its length is 36 inches, and its weight is 30 pounds. So it is very specific. You will notice the differences and similarities of classes from objects. So it reflects for classes, it reflects the value of their attributes being done for objects. For as objects, it has a base class and it has an object. for your activity number 14, so it's similar for your activity number 13, and you have to code this. Okay? So only number 13 and 14 activities will be done. Ad astra sapientia, to the stars through science. Okay, guys, so that ends our lecture for this evening. And I hope you have learned something out of our topic for this evening, that is object-oriented programming. Our object-oriented programming is written in C Sharp. And you will write this in your any IDE on the internet that you can find on your cell phones. And you can use also other methods. Okay. So what you're going to do, so it's similar to what you're going to do for the last activities that we did. And I hope that you can learn object-oriented programming, because in any programming, guys, object-oriented programming is very essential, not only in C Sharp, but in other languages as well. So I'm trying to make it as general as possible, but there are certain influences that you can find on it might be confusing at times, because object-oriented programming can be have a background for objects. These objects are represented by your variables, which has values, but accordingly, um, in simpler term, the objects are any thing that you can see on the screen. So like for example, ang inyong mga pangalan nga dayaw that you can see here, if you joined here tonight, it is displayed in tiled layout. So if you're displayed on a tile layout, and then you can have your names here, it's basically designed as an object. The objects can be found also can have a GUI, or the graphical user interface, such as this. You can see, like for example, if you use the ATM machine or the order type system of McDonald's sa takeout nanda. So that is a very good example of your object-oriented programming. Why? Because all you have to do is to pindot the objects. So when you do that, it's interfacing with you. So the interface is how are you going to talk with the computer. So like for example, if you're using your cell phones, that is also if you click an icon there, then that icon will run, and then therefore you are interacting with your interface, which is your cell phone, and it is running on Android, whereas ATM ninyo, I think it's running on Unix and Linuxes, and in your computer it's running on Windows, just like what you're doing right now. Otherwise, sa telephone ninyo, ti Android ang operating system. Yes, I think somebody raised their hand. Marge, yes. Kagina, do you have any question regarding our lesson for tonight? Okay, why question? Okay, sige. So I hope that you learned the object-oriented programming. Actually, guys, or object-oriented programming is one semester sa curriculum ka IT dapat. Kay hindi nyo gawa magets daya kay ang object-oriented programming is sometimes confusing, because duro nga classic backdrop or background. Pero if you will notice, guys, ang subject ninyo are interrelated. Later on, if you have SAD, or systems analysis and design, you will find out that object-oriented programming is part of SAD, or your systems analysis. It's mapo sabi nga approach ang systems analysis kay kon sa object na makita ninyo. Ang nature naton as human beings is we are very much ang sense of sight naton nga ginagamit bala kag sense of touch. So we are very sensitive on that kind of senses. So that's why mag-program gani ginabutang nanda sa object kay mas manami siya turukon guys kung i-visualize nimo kaysa puro nga text. Karang una ang computer naton ang program waay it mga tawo-tawo, waay it mga color, ang screen mo black and white lang. So daw ka boring. Pero nag-abot ang object-oriented programming, therefore nabutangan ka GUI. Ang GUI guys is an acronym of Graphical User Interface, GUI for short. So ang makita ninyo sa screen ka ATM ninyo GUI Ang makita niyo sa screen ninyo pagbukad niyo pa lang ka inyong laptop or computer GUI na siya. Kaya may mga objects, may mga color, may mga icons, may start menu kag iban pagid nga makita ninyo nga pwede ninyo i-interact kag i-interface. So that is a GUI or a graphical user interface. Ano yung labot ka GUI sa object-oriented programming? Ang GUI is amo daan naga-determine or kag naga-define kang inyong objects. So makita nyo ano ya itsura ka screen, green. Insa nga sa green ang color niya. Kay ang green nature. So kung nature gani mabugnaw sa mata. So daw mo da. Pero guys kung kamo hindi niyo dapat gamiton. Ang panamdaman ninyo mag-develop kamo ka system sa urihi or mag-program kamo GUI man da or object oriented programming or agile or whatever nga method ginagamit, SDLC, waterfall. Amo man dagyapon guys, ang purpose ninyo nga mag-program kamo maghimo ka mga solution sa a certain problem is because may client kamo nga naga-request kaninyo. So you're programming it not for yourself but you're programming it to other people nga magamit ka system ninyo. So insa nga manami diin mas manami nga ATM ana ka land bank or ana ka BDO. So depende no. Kahit interface nanda lain-lain man sa kada bangko. However, tama doon kay user friendly na otherwise kung puro text lang white color do ka patay blado hindi manami ang niya. So duro pa guys duro ya classic programming languages ngandang ginagamit naton or pero ang concept ka object-oriented programming is still the same. Especially now that most common is ang sa web applications gid kalabanan. That kay tulad nga time it's either ma-develop ka mobile app or may mo ka web pages. Or kung hindi ka mag-amo kada, ang nature mo abi is content creator, ma-YouTube ka lang, ma-upload ka mga video mo or mga lectures or whatever. Still the same. Kaya ang interface nga makita ninyo, nag-require ka object gihapon. So, yung object guys, and ang medyo nga ginatawag nga entity na ginatawag. Ang entity nga da is an object wherein it is either living thing or non-living thing basta naga-exist lang gid. Ay siya duro ng klase like for example if you say ISCOF San Enrique Campus, that is an entity because it is an institution. O magambal kamo abi Margie Belay, si Margie tawo siya, so object man gyapon. Kay kung magpanumdom kamo guys ka program ginapanumdom ninyong ang tanan nga information is gina-treat nga as objects. Kaya ang object may attribute, may characteristics. Na ang attribute is amo day ang mga nga certain definition kay isa ka object. So like for example, nato nabi no nga sa object no, okay, kahoy. Ano yung attribute ka kahoy? So, syempre, kahoy may ngaran. Anong ngaran na? Nara. So, Nara siya, pero ano yung color niya? So, brown. Brown? Okay, so sometimes medyo blackish or brown, depende. So, ano yan ang dahon? Green. ano yung color na green, ano kanggod ya leaves kanara, gamay, hanggod, medium size. So those are the things that needs a description. So kung ano nga nga bagay nga pwede, or tawo or butang or sapat nga pwede ninyo ma-describe, maskin ano lang, object na siya. So object na siya. So i-try nyo panumdom kay isa ka butang. O di ba kung isa gapapaktaton ka mo no, gapang ano yung ginapanumdom ko. Gamay, silver yung color na nga daw cylindrical nga ginabutang sa gadget. O pwede ninyo isipon battery na siya. Kay gamay nga butang nga ginagamit sa gadget. So ang description nga daa is ana ka object. Ano yung object? Battery. Ano nga klase ka battery? AA nga battery. Ginabutang sa alarm clock. Ano battery yung battery. Ano din ginagamit sa alarm clock. So, battery, object. Ang alarm clock, object. So, ang object na ginabutang ninyo sa program ninyo para ma-describe ka anang attribute kag anang characteristics. Amo da ka simple explanation. Kay ang naton, abi tama ka technical guys. Pero that is our textbook. So that's why I have to read it in English and to describe it to you. However, I'm just trying guys to make you understand using our colloquial term. So that is why I'm explaining it sa lingwahe naton. Pero ang tamang contextual nga guys is what you're going to do if you cannot understand it or anything that you need to know, you read or you research. So you just tap it on your Google or in Wikipedia and read. Basahan nyo guys. So kung hindi pagid, try to look for videos sa YouTube kag lantawon tuya kung ano day or i-compare ninyo ang amod ang naton nga lesson sa mga lectures tuya. And then you will find out that you can actually comprehend or understand because you make an effort to just read the descriptions. So that's the one thing. Okay, I don't want you guys to lang gid nga daw ka boring man gina lecture. Boring gid man guys sa programming actually. Pang lang siya, pang geek, abi nyo mapos mag-IT. Abi nyo IT, puro type lang sa computer, bukon. So, may programming gali sa IT. And ang inyong foundation should be just like this on sa first year, ang software development fundamentals. Okay, and part of that is our topic for tonight, which is your object-oriented programming. So, I have a hard time explaining it, gani. Kaya mas mapos gid man kon face-to-face. Kay I can use the blackboard and I can draw a certain description. And that is why nagasarig lang ako sa may naton PowerPoint presentation. So however, it's not perfect because I can do so much with it. And it's up to you guys to read pa more. I'm hoping that you at least you can just read the module lang yun, so that you can understand certain terminologies. If you cannot understand any terminologies, as I've said, go to Google and Google it, or you just ask me or whatever, or you can ask your schoolmate or classmates, or you can just type it on our private chat or on our GC na, so that I can Okay, by the way, I have one more module left. Isa dula to bilin. I hope nga nakabaton ang hindi gid ka attend no ka mga lecture naton tulad. Ang sunod ko duman nga ihatag is matapos ang midterm, ihatag ko na ang naka-final doon. So all in all guys, I think in midterm we have 8, 9 weeks. So kung 9 weeks siya, 18 ang ano na 18 weeks tanan. Okay, 9 chapter and then 9 chapter. Bali 18 tanan. Okay, we are now on week number 5. So we have 4 weeks to go, and then midterm, and then afterwards, next week guys, may klase pa kita. Nag-message sa bulletin ka eskwelahan, kay we have a bulletin for teachers for that we can grasp in information regarding kay 'di ba next week's Monday is Holy Week na, no? Monday to Friday. Pero ma-continue man tagyapon ka klase naton kay tigabi man lang. Kag kami gani guys, ma-duty pa kami sa school from Monday to Wednesday. Pag Thursday wala na kay Holy Thursday na. Then sa next week naman nga masunod. Pero ang deadline ka ninyo will be Friday man gyapon para nga you have ample time. So I also finished checking your work, and I hope na na-receive do ninyo balik ang activity ninyo sa last week. And I don't know guys if you did already your activity for this week. I hope so. I will just I'm checking it every Saturday. Kung wala, Sunday. Para by Monday I can post your next activity or your next module na for the activity. Okay, so any questions or comments or whatever questions, Wagid? Please ask questions so that I can answer it or I can explain. Gina-expect ko man dyan gani nga tulad gani guys nga amo daya situation ninyo. Hi, first year abi mo. Hindi ka mo, I don't know kung na culture shock ka mo ko programming nga subjects. Ang ano lang gid basa-basa, ang remedy ka lang ka curiosity ninyo is basa lang gid. Ang sa module ninyo guys, I'm giving you syntaxes pagid kag examples eh. If you will notice kung basahon nyo ganit mayad, ninyo. I'm giving examples and but the examples is technical. It's not on layman's term. So it's good gid if you have a background in programming sa first year ninyo or sa karang high school. If you have a program, maskin magsulat-sulat lang ka code kag ang kaya ang structure kada kag ang topics are similar. So there are on certain languages guys, may topic man sandag actually sa object-oriented programming. As I've said, supposedly object-oriented programming is one subject ida dapat isa ka semester. Tama siya ka broad na topic. Pero compress lang siya tulad hindi mo lang siya part sang lesson naton. Bali masulod yung mga OOP kag iban pa. Kay importante. Sa SAD ninyo may OOP man kamong gyapon. You will actually encounter this, the terminology for object-oriented programming. So that's why you just prepare. The reason for that is your IT subjects, as I've said, are interrelated. Interrelated in such manner nga sometimes ang topic naton sa subject nila ma-take up nyo daya sa iba nyo pagiging subjects. Pero hindi tanan-tanan. There are certain parts. That is why I'm warning you, kay ang object-oriented programming is a very good, broad topic. And it's easy to understand OOP. Kay object yan eh. Tama ka visualize, ka visual ang aton ng senses. Kag ang makita ninyo guys, mas nanami siya sa mata kung makita kaysa hindi makita. Although tanan do karon naka-filter doon. Naka-filter ya TikTok may filter. Facebook may filter, Messenger may filter, tanan may filter na. So, pero what's more appealing is the objects that you can see. So, in programming, you treat everything as objects or data para mas mapos lang nga insindi na amo da. Okay, so please jot down your attendance for tonight on our chat box. And thank you for attending. Of course, I will give certain points sa nag-attend. That is why don't forget,
Garing ko,
guys.
sir.
Ano to?
Date, garing ko.
Okay lang. May problema. I-jot down lang yung attendance mo dyan sa chat box.
Sige, sir. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. So, I hope that you learned something. If you don't, please review. I will just download the video later on and post it in YouTube and give you the link sa GC naton. So tell the others to see the video, okay? So that they can learn or what we have reiterated this evening. So thank you guys and good evening and see you next meeting, okay?
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vivian. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, L'Oreal. Ano ka utod-utod ikaw? Ano ta? Ano ang bal mo?
Nang sir, mga when nga midterm namon?
Your midterm supposedly is after chapter 9.
Ay, okay, sir.
So
Thank you, sir.
it's either mauna or manamulate kita 2 weeks. 2 weeks
Okay, sir.
supposedly dapat February 5 ma-start na gid kita kato. However, due to some circumstances, may mga delay. May iban kada, way pa ka pa-enroll, way karong simpong ato. So, medyo alanganin kita 2 weeks. Okay lang da guys. Kung hindi kita kalabot sa 9, okay man gyapon. Ito yung mga bawas-bawasan niya chapters ka ginano ninyo. Lantawa bala ninyo guys yung syllabus. To yan makita. May mga schedule na to kag mga ano. Sa Google Classroom naton, tuya dato ng butang. So nauna gid asa pinakadalom. Pero sige lang. Kung ma-announce man ko gyapon guys kung midterm na or hindi. Oo.
Okay, sir. Thank you, good, sir.
You're welcome. Okay lang. So there's a tendency gali ta nga ang sa iba depende sa mga subjects ninyo kung sino ya una ka start. Kay why man kami nagdurungan. Hayti may iban nga nag-advance, kay may dyan tutanda nga materials, may dyan mga wara nga dang 2 weeks after ang ano nanda. So kung mahangagaw gid sanda ka inadlaw, I think mga Mayo guro may midterm kita doon. It's either the first week of May or second week. Or kung match base last week of April, mga dayan. Okay guys, so any more questions? May panawan ka mo how? Gadali gid ka mo mag midterm?
Ay, sir.
Hindi magdali. Okay, sige. Amo lang da. Why dumakot inog pang bilin-bilin? Kamo base may ambal pa kamo? Or shout out sa classmates ninyo guys. Liog ko ambal kay iba nyo nga classmate nga i-open da yung phone nanda ha. Ay base manawag ako. Ay gina-check ko kung may mga module kamo or ay ang wara bala ka naka how iban abi ninyo guys nga number wala gagana. Tawagan ko daw gani why siguro mo open or base why signal or so i-follow up ko lang ka text hindi lang ka mo matingala may manawag or may ma-text na
Okay,
mapakilala
sir.
man ko gyapon or tandain nyo ang number ko bala guys kay ang sa module ninyo yung nabutang tuya ang 0946-200-6763 basta makita ka mo ka 63 sa punta akon ang number na kung sa Globe naman ang punta na is 95 basta 95 akon da nga number sa globe. Kung sa smart, it's 6.3 ang punta niya. Na. Oo, kay ba iban ka ninyo globe, iban ka smart man. So gina-check ko lang, i-check ko lang gid kung ano later on or ilantawon ko ang outputs nyo. Makita ko daabi sa Google Classroom eh. Amo daya reason insa nga sa Google Classroom kita gabutang kay mas mahapos matrace kung nakapasa ka or bara. Otherwise, kung hindi ka gid magpasa before midterm, dapat i-adto ka kanakon sa eskwelahan kag patsikan kanakon tanan-tanan mong activity. Manual nga pang check ato bangay kita nga duwa or tupaday kita nga duwa sa computer. I-save mo ang activity mo sa flash drive. Tapos, ang flash drive, amo daya bukadon ko to, lantawon ko yung activity niyo kung sakto kung hindi. Pwede akon, di ba guys, screenshot man lang yung ginapangayo ko. Screenshot man lang. So kung may malang mas maposta na, Google Classroom na lang, i-upload na lang. Ang problema lang, I know the problem, ang load ninyo kag ang connectivity. So that's the problem. Kaya ang solusyon na dyan, tawaan ka mo ka module, ang hindi gid ka attend. Tawaan ka module sanda, kung hindi pa ginanda maobra, dang isave nanda sa flash drive. Kag dayon patsikan to kanakon before midterm. Tanan activity. Okay? So sige guys, amo lang da guro Why naman siguro iban kita nga i-discuss pagid. Otherwise, may question ka mo pagid na. Kung late ang pagpasa nyo, and if you want to pass nyo lang sa Google Classroom. Kay balikan ko data na. Ginabalikan ko para guys, kung may dyan ka mo nalipatan or na why na obra ng mga activity, kay 5 pa lang taka weeks. So most of the time, ang per week 2 activity man lang, di ba? Ginapaobra ko. So, medyo nabi nga times nga masako ka mo or hindi gid ka connect or why gid signal, manan ko gabisyo. Kaya akon kina gabisyo man ya internet ko sa eskwelahan. Gabalon ako guys kay ka modem. Why kami tot sa eskwelahan internet akon nga personal nga ginagamit ya So may gid man pero okay lang. Lang yun. Tsaga-tsaga lang. Imo ko man yung best ko nga matawan ta kamo ka maklasihan ta kamo kag matawan ka activity kag machekan ang ginaobra ninyo. So amo da. So dali lang gid if ever nga mag face to face pero I doubt kay way pat vaccine basi mga June pa. Or sometimes kaninyo basi na bakunahan dutin nyo bala sa barangay nyo. Okay gid. Pero ang iban, amo da, pa yung protocol, hindi anay gid magguruwa or So that's it for tonight. And thank you so much, guys. Nabutang nyo, once nga maka-comment ka mo sa chat box, attendance naman da doon. Oo. Sige. Okay, I think may surprise ako guro next meeting lang. Okay? Para nga medyo mabuen-buenan niya ninyo. Kaya makasmile man ka mo gyapon. Okay, so good evening and thank you. Stop ko na ang recording.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gid.
Thank you.
And good.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.